Run-on sentences occur when two sentences are put together as one. There are two independent clauses without a punctuation mark, or two independent sentences joined by a comma. In the classroom, I'll go over a few examples of this common error for you. Okay, run-on sentences. Let's take a look at a couple of examples of run-on sentences, how we're going to fix them, and then I'll give you a list of some things that you want to look out for. Here's the first example. It reads, his research won him awards, making him famous. As a result, he bought a new lab in which to concentrate on his latest invention that will hopefully lead to a Nobel Prize. When trying to figure out if you have run-on sentences, you want to see if there are independent subjects and verbs within each section. So they have underlined famous as in several examples or choices for us to make. Let's take a look at it. There are multiple verbs and subjects that can stand alone, such as research won. All right, so we have verb won, what won, research. What else do we have? He, right? Bought. Well, once again, we have he as being a subject and bought being a verb. They can stand alone. An invention is another. We have noun. Will lead is another verb. So we have three different subjects and verbs within this selection. We can probably then say, ooh, we got a run-on. Let's see how we can fix it. We're going to have to separate the phrases into independent sentences here. So this is our choice, famous as far as a place to go ahead and separate those two. If you have two independent clauses separated by a comma, you have a comma splice. So we want to avoid that as a mistake. Let's look at what we have. A, no change. That one's out. Making him famous. Semicolon as a result. We need to separate them into separate sentences. Semicolon doesn't make sense there. As I mentioned, you have two independent clauses. You wouldn't want to just separate them with a comma. That would give you a comma splice. So that would be incorrect. The only one that separates them into separate sentences is D, famous as. So let's look at how that sentence would read. His research won him awards, making him famous, period. As a result, he bought a new lab in which to concentrate on his latest invention that will hopefully lead to a Nobel Prize. That's cleaned up, no problem. That's correctly done. This will be the second example we take a look at. I wanted to show you two. This one's short. So what I want you to know is that you can actually have a run-on or a problem even in short sentences. What we have here is a run-on sentence because we have two independent clauses only separated by a comma. The game will be long, comma, bring a jacket. Right. We have sentences as far as we have subjects and verbs. What will be long? The game. What are we to bring? We bring as being a verb, a jacket. So we know no change is incorrect. What will we want to do? A hyphen, incorrect use of that punctuation. A comma is already there with the word so. Or the game will be long, period, bring a jacket, making it two separate situations. So now, this one is more interesting. It makes sense to join these very two short phrases, all right, even though they're independent clauses, by adding a modifier being so. That would make the sentence read correctly. So instead of having two very short, choppy sentences, there's a situation where we would go with C. The game will be long, comma, so bring a jacket. As long as you're adding that extra word, that modifier, you're no longer looking at a comma splice. Take those two independent clauses that are so short and go ahead and combine them into one. Some things to look out for. When an independent clause gives an order or directive based on what was said in the prior independent clause. All right, sounds like a mouthful. Let's look at an example. This following notes are difficult. You should start revising them right away. Since notes is plural, this should read these. These following notes are difficult, comma. You should start reviewing them right away. Right there you have an independent clause giving an order based on what was said in the prior sentence. So you want to be careful there. There's a run-on. You may also have a run-on where you have two independent clauses that are connected by however, moreover, or nevertheless. The science experiment took many hours. Nevertheless, the final results were worth the time and effort. That needs to be cleaned up as well. These words, however, moreover, nevertheless, transitional phrases, if they're in the middle of a sentence, you don't have punctuation or qualifiers around them, you're looking at a run-on, you probably have to make some changes there by getting rid of the word, adding a period, and capitalizing the next sentence. Another thing to watch out for is when the second of two independent clauses contains a pronoun that connects it to the first independent clause. Here's what we mean. There's an example. Much of the material in the research center is outdated. This proves my point about needing more funding. So you have two independent clauses, and the second one contains the pronoun. All right, it connects it to that first independent clause. So once again, you have looking more like a comma splice, you'll need to fix this part up here. In conclusion, if the exam is asking for a choice of using a comma, a period, a hyphen, or leaving the choice word and punctuations alone, determine if there are two independent clauses. If you find a verb and then a corresponding subject for both clauses, you have a run-on sentence and need to separate the clauses with a period and then capitalize the first word after the period.